everyone does, Christopher Walken in that same sort of frequency and just sort of cliche one tone, like ow, ow, ow. But if you watch Christopher Walken in an interview or in like a scene from Man on Fire, it's like there's and goes to voice acting too. There's way more peaks and valleys. It's like two mice fell in a bucket of cream.
That is Nick Serrano. Nick is the guest on today's episode. He's an impressionist, a voice actor, comedian, improviser, an all-around great guy, funny guy. You can find Nick on TikTok and on Instagram at Nick V. Serrano, Serrano, where you can see all his impressions from Matthew McConaughey to Tony Soprano, Christopher Moltisanti, Paulie Walnuts, Christopher Walken, anyone and everyone in between. Super talented guy. We talked to Nick about all those impressions, how he was able to master several impressions, become one of the most entertaining TikTok accounts around, as well as his thoughts on TikTok as an app, on Instagram as an app, and the changes in the entertainment industry. It's a great conversation, and it's coming right up right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, Joe Kaiser.
No! God, please, no! 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 No!
I went out to eat for the sake of this next joke. Joke.
Order the double cheese and sausage.
Joe Kaiser, ladies and gentlemen.
In terms of the origin story, my end road to getting into this. I mean, I was a kid, and I, one, kind of like the standard, voiceover of every movie. When I was a kid, 5 years old, I always loved movies, always loved TV, and as a kid, watching Aladdin, Robin Williams was kind of my initial inspiration. And I think that is the case for many comedians, but especially ones who have a specialty and focus on impressions as being part of their bit and a lot of their comedy material. And it sort of started from there. And I was messing around and curious as to how the Simpsons characters did their voice whenever I would sneak downstairs while my parents were sleeping to watch the Simpsons because they wouldn't let me watch it. Hearing Marge and Homer, and
Homer, you gotta stop drinking.
Oh, Marge, baloney, and that was it. I was a teenager, and then first time I got behind the mic, my grandfather and I always he loved boxing, and he introduced me to Michael Buffer. And he became, my idol. I would say his tagline, but he has crawlers and lawyers all over the internet to, catch people who do say, let's get ready to rumble. And they get sued immediately. But I was just enamored by him, and that got me into first time getting in front of the mic for my high school basketball team. I was like a junior, and I was practicing in the cafeteria, and the athletic director came over. I was like, Coach, I would love to announce the basketball game, the starting lineup. It's like, all right, let's see what you got. He said, at forward, number 5 from West Haven, Connecticut. And then, Lamar, like whatever it would be, and that grew and grew, and I did that for UConn hockey and auditioned for the Brooklyn Nets to be their announcer. Out of like 1,000 people, got down to be the Final Four. Wow. And that was the first time I really got bit by the show business bug and the performance bug, and also the first time I got my nose bloody because they ended up picking someone who wasn't a finalist. It was the Cleveland Cavaliers guy. His contract ended, and they scooped him up. So heart was broken, nose was broken, figuratively, and but it taught me to get back up and started going into building my brand on social media. And I was just paralyzed by my just sort of anxiety and OCD to ever publish my work on social. And, this all sort of took place right around when I graduated college, like 2016, 2017. And I finally made the leap after just, this career path changed. I wanted to be a lawyer when I graduated college, and that ended quickly after I worked at a law firm and saw what it was like. It's like, I do not want to do this.
Yeah.
So I did some soul searching, and first video I posted was a Tony Soprano skit. And I was so nervous that I did a face swap. Back when Snapchat did the face swap,
Yeah.
I couldn't even bear like sharing my face because I was just so, OCD and scared to take this leap forward. But I did. And then I joined, started my career in marketing on the finance side. And there's so many incredibly boring people in the financial planning industry. But I was like, I'm going to make my splash and just sort of mitigate risk and sort of Matthew McConaughey is my idol. So he's not just an actor, he's a business person, and did that for 4 years, and then I couldn't take it anymore. So now in a much more creative position as a social media manager for a fintech company. So
sorry, I would say, what do you, before I lost my train of thought, what do you think it is? I have a little bit of this too, where you have some anxiety about wanting to post to social about because you're clearly talented. Is it like a self-doubt where you think people might think this sucks, they might think it's corny? What is that feeling? I don't even know if I can put it into words why, because I get that all the time, what that fear is of putting something out there.
Yeah, man, there's actually a term for it. So, and I've gotten better at overcoming it, but aticophobia, it's the fear of failure. But also it's vulnerability and being able to be okay with something not being perfect or something not resonating, or something stinking. And that's what sort of held me back. And it's you're already, and you've overcome that, because podcasting is, in order to be successful, you have to be vulnerable. If people can immediately tell if you're being fake on a podcast. That's the beauty of podcasting. It's like the most authentic, closest emotional medium that you have to get your message across and to reach your audience, but that's what held me back. And it was, is this going to be funny? Is this going to resonate? And that's kind of like the good and the bad and the ugly of, using, promoting yourself and social media. It's that you forget that you kind of need to do it for yourself. Mm-hmm. And that was something that I didn't grasp early on. And it's what I'm grasping now. And it's what's made me more disciplined and quicker and more intentional with my material. And and also there's fear of you becoming stale. Right. You don't want to, you're doing this and you're garnering success, but again, it just goes back to the aticophobia. It just leads back to that fear of failure. That's what held me back. And I feel like that's what holds a lot of people back when it comes to promoting themselves, their personal brand, their business, on social. I think more so in comedy. I can't speak for other spaces. I think more so for actual people and comedy. I think that's a very common thread.
Definitely is. And the thing that's helped me get over that more recently has been the thought of like you can talk yourself out of anything. You can say anything's not perfect, and that's find a million reasons not to do something. But I was talking to Scott Dykers, who's a co-founder of The Onion, and he was talking to me about how no one's going to dwell on the failures. Like it might be a failure to you, it might not be perfect to you, but no one's going to say like he posted something and it sucked. They're not going to dwell on that forever. So you just need to keep putting stuff out there and putting stuff out there. And when I had that conversation with him, the example we used was Larry David was on Friday's terrible sketch comedy show in the 80s. He was a writer on SNL, got no sketches on the air, and then finally broke through in his 40s with Seinfeld. So like you just have to keep putting stuff out there and putting stuff out there. And I think realizing that it's okay if something flops is probably the easiest way to get over that.
Yeah. And it's, you know, to your point, reminding yourself of failure is an event. It's not you as a person. And that was something that I had to put more at the front of mind, because to the other point you made, it's like, well, if this flops, then this is going to set me back and eventually making my break. And it's like, no, it's just do it. Just do it. The break will come. It's the latent potential sort of effect. It's the stonemason who hits the stone 99 times and his arm is just dead, but on that 100th time he finally breaks the freaking stone.
Right. Yeah. And I think like 100 things have to go wrong probably for one thing to go right that really matters. So I think it's a great lesson in comedy, especially. That's the one thing that I can relate to too, is like telling yourself that if you're doing stand up, like telling yourself not to go on stage for a million different reasons they can make up. Or if you're doing a sketch, if you think it's not going to be perfect, so you don't make it, like you just got to create stuff all the time. And the fact that you are doing it is awesome, because so just backing up a little bit, when you were talking about being attracted to the Simpsons and those voice actors and stuff, were you researching then what goes into crafting a good impression? Because it always amazes me, like I have friends in comedy who do impressions really well, but I'm always amazed how they got to the point, like what exercises had to go into crafting like a Matthew McConaughey or Christopher Walken, or in your case, all the Sopranos characters, which are really unique ones. Like, did you have to figure out what work you need to put in to pull that off?
So it was there was no, I wish I had like this beautiful answer, but I was just such a curious kid, and I was always intrigued by how things worked and self-testing and just being diagnostic. So it was repetition. It was just repetition of, and later on in my career, when it came to comedy and voices and doing impressions, I did discover that there is actual physical techniques that could be done and applied. Excuse me. But in the beginning, it was just me being in tune with my body and just constantly repeating, and just analyzing and just internalizing. And eventually it just started to just trickle into YouTubing all the classic impressionists that I knew at the time, like Dana Carvey and Jim Carrey, and obviously Robin Williams, but more importantly, the people that I revered in terms of actors that I now impersonate. So Al Pacino and all these people, I would watch their interviews. So whenever these actors, that was my process. I would watch anytime all the interviews of these actors that are on Jimmy Kimmel, if they were on, whatever, because that's when I heard all the little details, all the little nuances, because, everyone does, Christopher Walken in that same sort of frequency and just sort of cliche one tone, like, ow, ow, ow. Yeah. But if you watch Christopher Walken in an interview or in like a scene from Man on Fire, it's like there's and goes to voice acting too. There's way more peaks and valleys. It's like,
Right.
2 mice fell in a bucket of cream. And that was like a totally different scene from a different movie, but like it's those different textures. And that's how I learned to craft well-rounded impressions, is like watching them in human to human casual settings to see who they truly were like. So that was, and as I went on, like, I discovered people, and right at the precipice of the social media boom, and had discovered more impressionists, and realized I wasn't alone, and I found my tribe. More people, like Jim. I think his name on Instagram is Jim Impressions, and he did tutorials on how to do like Robert De Niro. It's like, you gotta fuck through your nose a little bit, and then you gotta put your tongue out. You're good, you fucker.
Yeah.
So it's like the physicality element, and so that's and you can't judge process when it comes to doing comedic impressions, because it's so nuanced, and like physically everyone is built differently, like with their vocals, with their body makeup. It's a very meta thing with impressions, because someone might have a different vocal range than someone else. Like Nikki Smiggs does a phenomenal Christopher Walken, in his own right, and I also do a Christopher Walken, but I have a deeper voice, and I do a different style of a Walken. Same thing with Soprano. So it's it's a very meta sort of process.
When you say physical, like the physical aspects, I've noticed that you do, like for Pauly, for example, you like really have his hand gestures down and everything. Does that help with the voice too, or is that just part of the act?
Yeah, no. Well, that's why I said it's so nuanced, because the impression is a form of acting, and it connects you. So those, to your point of the physicalness, it's that physicality helps your brain connect more to the output of the impression of the voice. Like, so when I do those Pauly gestures, that helps me get in the zone in a much deeper way, to really get much closer. I get closer to the Pauly impression for accuracy with that physicality, and any other impression, adding those motions and that physicality, compared to if I didn't do it and I had my hands at my side,
Right. Yeah.
So it's that acting element that is going to take you a hell of a lot further if you don't treat it like acting.
Yeah, because I noticed the few impressions that I can sort of half-ass, I've noticed that I have to do, like, I started doing like a Trump thing where I could do the Trump hand motions and stuff, but couldn't do the voice. And I realized the more I did the hand motions, the more I felt comfortable kind of getting there into a real impression. And I didn't know if it was a coincidence or if it's an actual thing. When you're doing the Pauly, like that kills me. It's not just that the voice is spot on, but you do all the hand motions are hilarious. Even the McConaughey, I noticed that, and there's a lot of Matthew McConaughey impressions, but something I liked about yours was there's something with his facial gestures that you nailed that he does. I can't even describe it, but there's like, he does some weird things with his face where it's like, you clearly know.
It's like, you're very observant guys. So most love to that. It's a lost art. Yeah, he said it's with McConaughey. He almost like he makes like a concerted effort to like accentuate his dimples, like.
Right.
But it's this facial expression he does where it's representative of him, not in a narcissistic way, but he just loves the sound of his own voice, just subconsciously, that he like can't help but smile. Yeah. And I don't know what that hat is, but that color is pretty cool. Like
Yeah.
it's just everything is just like silk, and it's almost like he's pulling this silk hanky out of his mouth, like every word. And you just bring it right here. It's like a lot of lips, it's a lot of cheek, and it's that little Texas dimple that he sort of has that you gotta create a little bit when you want to really dive deep in a McConaughey impression.
Yeah.
Green line prescription.
Is there one that was more difficult to pull off than some other ones?
So there's a lot of, so, I'm glad that I've built such a community around Sopranos, and the Sopranos skits aren't going to stop. But for 2021, I am going to introduce a lot of other impressions, and ones that initially, when I started this, 5-6 years ago, but right when COVID happened. So to kind of backtrack, because I wanted to answer a couple other points of your initial question. So I had, my anxiety had, up until the pandemic, really prevented me from doing and sharing anything. Like I dripped it very little. And once COVID hit, in short, I said, this is all terrible, and I'm keeping a good thought for everyone who's impacted by COVID, and health-wise, and just economically. But you can't waste a crisis. So I saw what was going on TikTok. People were telling me, get on it, get your Instagram going, like full throttle. You have nothing to lose. Like the world is literally burning. Like just and that became really salient to me. And I said, you know what, here we go, and just let it fly. And then started. And see, I was part of the UCB Improv Theater. So, and that's why I moved to New York, to cut my teeth in comedy. And I moved here in November 2019. And I was one of the last shows to perform at UCB Theater in Hell's Kitchen. And then COVID. So I haven't been able to get on stage. So social media became my stage, and then took off with TikTok, and really focused on Sopranos, because that was what was resonating, and people were reacting, engaging, and it was fantastic. So I kept building on that and started dripping in a couple more. And it carried over to Instagram. But for it, and the engagement rate in such a short amount of time on TikTok, like the amount of people you could reach in such a small, short time span was crazy. And it's really, it was amazing to see. And, it's kind of plays to, growing the knowledge base in my field, in terms of my 9-to-5 career, that if you want to grow your brands, TikTok, it's not slowing down.
No.
That's for sure.
Crazy.
Yeah, but some difficult impressions that I think now you're going to see in 2021. I couldn't do a Chris Rock for a while, and whenever I did, and practicing, I would strain my voice, and that goes for several other impressions. You got to learn how to really not, for those gritty voices, find a way to not strain your voice. Where there's a will, there's a way. You could figure it out. But I don't really know what is going on with these vaccines. Where the fuck is the information? So
That's pretty good.
I ain't gonna read a brochure. So he's one. Mark Wahlberg is always, I envy people who are able to do him, because it
seems tough.
Yeah, he's tough. It's like, very breathy, like nervous. I don't know what we're doing here. Like, my teeth cold. Like, your wife? What?
It has to be almost like in a nervous, like in a movie, like an action movie or something. It's not like him, because Chris Rock, like he has a thing. Like every time you hear him talk, like he has this particular cadence. But Mark Wahlberg, when I think of an impression of him, it's going to be in Shooter or something, like, or the
Yeah.
Departed. Like it's like in a rushed, nervous tone.
Yeah, exactly. Correct. But to like Wahlberg in Departed, yeah, it's like it's the exact opposite. It's like it's very aggressive and
Yeah.
forward. It's like supposed to be an astronaut, kind of state trooper, like just going back to his Boston roots. But yeah, and another tough one. Women,
Oh yeah.
impersonating women is always, I get that a lot, and I do my best, and I try to compensate with uh, certain word pronunciations or mannerisms, and I always get a little nervous when people ask for Carmela.
That's got to be tough, and it's good, but to watch it, and like if I was just listening to it, I think it would be like spot on. But it's hard to look at a man doing a woman.
Hard to look at a man with a beard and it feels weird, but yeah, I try to some degree, like, be close enough, and obviously it'll never be perfect, but yeah, there's always tough ones. Like there's a guy, Al Foran, who does a phenomenal Joe Rogan. Like Joe Rogan is another one that I'm really trying to work out. Like, it's unreal. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. Like you have to look him up, because his Joe Rogan is fantastic. And that's kind of, I'm sure there's more, but I'm the most self-loathing person.
Well, I would imagine, just because I haven't seen a ton of Tony Sopranos, I thought maybe that becomes more difficult to craft. Like you're the only one I've ever seen do Paulie, I think. But I would also imagine that the easier ones to do are the ones where you have kind of like a canned line that you can throw in there. Like Rogan seems tough because like you're going to have to say certain things. You have to talk about DMT or
yeah.
Like you have to like find particular lines to say.
It's shit that I'm still like learning about. Like, you gotta have those bumper stickers, those specific identifiers. So yeah, you're right on that.
So you only joined TikTok when the pandemic started?
Yeah.
Was it weird for you, like trying to learn and navigate the app? Because it's still, I manage a buddy's page with him, and I just created my own now just to experiment with stuff. And I find, and I'm scrolling all the time through it. It's the biggest time suck in the world. And I still feel like I'm learning stuff about it every day. Like when I first downloaded it, I was like, why does this video of a girl dancing have like 90,000 views? Like, I don't get it. And
yeah,
I'm with it more now, and I can understand what kind of pops, but it took me a long while to like understand what's going to pop on TikTok. And I think I'm still learning about it now. It's totally different than any other app.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's so there's a lot of mystique. I feel like there's enough information where you could be tactical and do all the right things, from the industry experts' guidance, using this hashtag and hopping on this trend and using this sound and muting and so on and so forth. And you could do all these things. And sometimes the posts will not perform. And like you said, it's the kid, from Oklahoma who doesn't put any hashtag in his caption, and it's him just, I don't even know, like putting a peanut butter rice cake smashed over his face, and then it blows up, and it's like, what? So
I don't get the algorithm that well. I don't.
Yeah, it's weird. But at the beginning, I had no idea what I was doing. Like I was doing the bare minimum table stakes. Like here, I was initially making them in the app, And then, obviously my knowledge base grew and grew, and you know, I really don't. It There's a lot of it I don't understand, and there's a lot of it that I do understand. But the people, really, in terms of the videos itself, like those transitions, that's over my head. Like, and also I don't agree with like the need to overproduce like videos. It's just
sure.
like those, yeah. Like unless that's your page's focus, you're teaching people how to do these transitions. Like I got no desire to do that. That's just so staccato. Like, what am I gonna do crazy transition for?
Yeah.
It's like, that stuff. Yeah, is still very confusing.
I think that almost has the opposite effect of what it's intended to do, because people like authenticity, and like adding all this pretense to the video, I think can sometimes make it less funny. Like a dude just doing an impression in his house, or like doing a short little bit that could be almost like stand up in his house, is like it feels authentic. But when you add all these transitions and a lot of pretense to it, I think it inherently can make it less funny.
Yeah, totally. And that's something I learned, that, and it's kind of like an improv principle. Don't put too much in between you and the audience. Like you'll notice originally I didn't do any wardrobe changes like I do now, because I was just so attached to the sort of improv, like golden rule of just let the audience imagine it. But eventually that was a core belief that I just kind of willingly was able to break, and started doing wardrobe changes and get some better lighting. But it's all you need. Don't let perfect get in the way of good.
Totally. Did you pop pretty quickly on TikTok? Like,
I did.
Yeah.
I in terms of the content and the followers, like I just hit, I just broke 10,000 followers a few months ago. Actually, like in December or January, I broke 10,000, which was exciting. And that's one thing I do understand. It's volume. If you really want to grow in a rapid way and have a high growth rate for followers and engagement, you have to post a lot. And that's something I totally understand and I appreciate and can agree with as a metric for like growing your reach and ultimately your profile success. Personally, I can't agree with that for my own personal brand. And I know that, if I want to have a higher growth rate with my followers and my community and my engagement, reach more people, then I know I need to do that. But I'd rather do one really good post every week or every 10 days than test out like half-baked material every other day.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
And
oversaturated.
Yeah, it's just oversaturated. And it's not to say that the people who do post every day, their content isn't good. But I also like having a full-time job, and also like it's balancing that work life and then the creative nightlife. It's demanding. So being able to, and I'm a planner, I'm a scheduler, but I need to have that. I want to give my content the undivided attention it deserves, because that's what I owe my audience and my community. They deserve that. That's something that I'm not going to give them half-baked stuff. More importantly, Denzel Washington had a great quote. the actors that you see in movies every year and promoting themselves, it's like, this guy's got another movie. But yeah, his philosophy is he's not going to take he's not going to take every project. He's gonna wait on it. He's going to stay quiet and really capitalize on the project that sparks him up. And that's the same with me. And that's kind of the frequency I'm comfortable with. Will that change in the future? It could, but for right now, that's kind of the pace that I'm going to be running.
Yeah, it's quality over quantity. That's the way I look at it. And
Correct.
It becomes a little bit more special then when you're, because like if you have the same fans coming back and commenting on your videos, and you built this community, if it's once a week, which isn't that infrequent, like that time that you posted, he goes, "Oh, Nick has a new video. It's Tony talking to Matthew McConaughey or Andrew Cuomo or something." Like,
yeah,
like, hilarious. And now they have to wait another 6 days for it. Like it becomes like a special sort of thing. But with TikTok, it has seemed to me that like the way at least a lot of people approach it is the way to really pop is you just got to keep throwing shit against the wall and kind of seeing what sticks, which is what we talked about at the outset. Is like you got to try things. You got to put stuff out. It doesn't matter if it flops, but
correct.
It is weird. Like you just become oversaturated on TikTok. I'm still learning about it all the time. It's such a weird world there where you're scrolling, you see somebody making a pasta with feta cheese and tomatoes, and then you go and there's some 16-year-old dancing, and then there's somebody like doing a prank with their dad, and it's just such a whole new. It's exciting, but it's a whole crazy world out there.
Yeah, man, and it's the model, like the user experience model for TikTok is designed to keep you there for a very long time, because there is no feed that the format is not like Instagram where you go on, you could go here, you could go there, you could scroll here, you could click in here. Everything's just there on TikTok. It's just one after the other. It's like that concept on Netflix when you're binging a show, and it's like you see that little meter fill up, like next episode. Like you don't have to think about it. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna watch this next episode. Same thing with TikTok. It's like it's there. You're just scrolling. And it's designed to keep you in. Some people for hours. Like whenever I have to schedule out time to watch TikToks like at the end of the day, because I know that I'm going to be sucked in. And my brother, I'll send him stuff, and it's all around the same time. And he's like, "Dude, do you like write out in your planner when you watch TikTok? Because it's always at like 12 videos. I'll send them at like 8 o'clock on a Tuesday." It's like, yeah, and sorry, I spammed you, but it's the way it is.
Yeah, I do like an hour before bed, which is probably not good for my health. It's like the worst time to do it, but it's always like the hour before I fall asleep. I'm scrolling through TikTok.
Yeah, it's a nice little sleep aid. It's like a warm bubble bath.
Yeah. So now that you understand the app a little bit better, and you clearly have thoughts about its growth and everything, how do you think that it impacts the industry and like content creators? Because I see a way that I think, especially during the pandemic, because like you started making your own stuff and putting it out during the pandemic on TikTok and Instagram, and a lot of people in comedy were forced to create stuff for themselves and really lean into this digital world where they're not waiting on, a club booker if you're doing stand-up, or if you're in film waiting on a film role or something. You have to really just go out and do it yourself. And I think for a lot of people who weren't already doing that, even for me, where I felt like I was trying to create my own content, I think it's like a huge light bulb that went off during the pandemic, where it's like, we have to do this. And then all of a sudden, once you start creating your own content, really leaning into these digital channels, it's like, maybe I can do a lot of things myself. Maybe I can make sketches. Maybe I can make films potentially on my own. Maybe I don't need to rely on Hollywood or agents or managers or something. Like, do you see any sort of, it's only been a year, but you've seen success online like impact maybe for you personally, or the way you view how to grow your brand and have success in this industry?
Oh, 100%. And it turned everything on its head. What a lot of, there's silver linings in everything. And COVID specifically, it revealed that a lot of the constraints for within show business and entertainment business, and for everyone who wants to break in, all those constraints are bullshit in terms of the gatekeepers, in terms of needing to do this, and like this is the process, and all that mystique was thrown out the window because it, in reference to TikTok, it gave creators total agency. It empowered them to take, like, this is their stage, this is their medium for their breadth and body of work, and they have the opportunity to reach so many people at such a high rate that, Victory, the guys from Entourage, they started their own podcast, and they recently just held a contest for aspiring filmmakers to make their own short film. And, most of them did it with very lo-fi equipment and resources, and they made great content. And, shout out Johnny Drama. What is this, custom? Get mine straight off the rack, but it kind of revealed that style of work and those people, they have total agency now. And
Yep.
It's also changed the landscape of movies too, because a lot of those same filmmakers and those creators, certain people are referring to a lot of film work and projects as content now, and it's representative of a new wave, that times are changing, because Martin Scorsese had and put out a quote saying, calling films and movies and the work and the product of the film industry content cheapens, the art of movie making and this, that, the other. And, I don't think it's that serious. So it's revealed that there's a wave of change coming. It's given agency to creators, and it's provided those creators a totally new and a more effective route to reach the people that they need to reach, to really bring their dreams and passions and career aspirations to fruition and get in front of the right people.
100%. And I just goes back to what I mentioned before we started recording about this idea, like how has SNL not reached out to these incredibly talented people on TikTok? And I'm sure like you'd love the job if it came up. It's a great job, but there's a point of me where it's like, who cares? Like, there's something so antiquated about waiting until 10:30 to watch SNL or Jimmy Fallon or whatever. Like, all respect to them, when I can just watch you do 12 different impressions in 30 seconds on my, like, it's a whole new world. And I think, it's a little bit different. It feels, I think to a lot of people, it might feel kind of cheap to just equate scrolling through Instagram or scrolling through TikTok to movies and TV shows, but it's all content. It's all competing for your attention.
Correct.
And I spend more time on TikTok than I do by a large margin watching NBC or CBS or these networks that I haven't turned on in years. So I think it's just a totally new landscape.
Yeah. And, to kind of add to the origin story, so my dream when moving to New York, long-term down the road, I wanted to, and a part of me still very much wants to, be on SNL. And
Sure.
the still my idol, and I think he's fantastic. And I love how he's sort of catapulted into different areas from SNL is Jay Farrow. And I met Jay Farrow actually. I went to a comedy show of his. It was great, and it was just like I was blown away because I was. This was like 3 or 4 years ago, and I was still in that anxious phase and hadn't taken the big leap yet as to how I did it at the start of 2020. But to your point, that aspiration has thinned a little bit, and it's not totally gone, but for that exact reason that you mentioned, that I don't even. I sat down to watch SNL maybe once in 2020 just to see a full episode. It was the Daniel Craig one. I was like, I'm a huge James Bond fan, but don't hold that against me. It's just something I haven't let go of as a kid. But other than that, I watch all the highlights from SNL on social media. So
Yeah, exactly.
And network TV listen, 90% of my peers and my friend groups either don't have cable, and if they do have some form of cable, it's either using their parents' cable login or Hulu Live. Like network TV is, I think, something that is in traditional media still, it's here because the generations, our parents' generations and the ones before them, they're still very much alive, and they consume their content and their media through that vein. But, social media is those are the networks. The social media is the medium, and the networks are all the different platforms.
And you are your own channel in that way.
You are your own channel. Exactly. Yep. That's literally like the anatomy of it.
And I think that's great. That puts more power into the creator's hands.
Yeah, because listen, everything and this is like, just in specific to this, but decentralizing in this sense is a good thing. Like back then, there were so many gatekeepers and, interpreters and all this, like media was so centralized, and social decentralized it. And now everyone has a voice, and that's the biggest benefit. So you don't need to be on NBC and be an anchor to make it.
Yeah.
You want to be a correspondent. You could just do it on your social media channel and then go work for Rotten Tomatoes, and boom, that's it. You're in.
Right. And like those legacy brands of like the Tonight Show and SNL and all these things, they still carry weight. Like if Jimmy Fallon called me right now, it'd be like, I'd freak out. Like that's a big deal. And I talk to comedians who have been on all these late night shows, and they think it's cool because of the idea of being on the Tonight Show or being on the Late Show. Like that's still a cool thing just because of the history involved and the legacy involved. But in reality, you're just doing that for the YouTube clip. So you're just getting that to get
You're doing it for the clip. Yeah.
It's interesting how it affects like all those things I still respect, but it affects your aspirations. Because I've wanted to be in comedy since I was in high school, and I always daydreamed about getting my big break on Conan because he was my guy, and I watched him all the time. Like one day I'll do stand up on Conan. That's never going to happen. He's ending his show. Like,
exactly.
It just changes the way you view things, and no one could have anticipated it, but really it's a changing time, and it really is, I think, for the better.
Yeah, I agree. And listen, think about it, the introduction of technology, the advancement of it, it's two people ago, like 100 years ago is really when we had the first telephone or some form of it. And the chart of just the advancement of technology from like the 90s till now, like just immediately skyrockets. And that's goes right into social, and it's changed the game. It's changed how people create and interact with each other. And when it comes to traditional media, I think it's still it's on its way out, and I think it's probably a long time before it's fully foisted and a thing of the past. Because listen, it's awesome to look back at the pioneers. Johnny Carson, you know, gave so many great comedians their big break and influenced our comedians of today. And had it not been for what they did with late night TV and, you know, doing showcases for stand-up comedians, like we wouldn't be where we are today with comedy. So it comes a point where I think we all got to accept we need to tip our hats and embrace that the game has changed, and let's ride this new wave, you know?
Yeah. I mean, people are resistant to change, but like, it doesn't mean that any of the stuff that happened in the past was bad or doesn't deserve to be thought of. Like Carson, Jack Benny, everybody on SNL for 30 years. Like, that's all.
Chevy Chase, all those SNL pioneers. Like, are you kidding? You wouldn't be here today. Like, nobody would have been inspired had that not been in existence. But like everything, I compare it to when actors and artists just need to retire, and that's what just needs to happen with that. Like, no one really needs another 50 Cent album. They're like 50 doesn't, he can't top what we already done. Same thing kind of with Jay-Z. Like, Jay-Z might be the exception to a rule, and nobody would have not mind a Jay-Z album, but there's just a fatigue where you just got to say, you know what, I did what I did, and now it's time for me to do something else.
Yeah. And I'm kind of just predicting that once this current crop of late night talk show hosts retire, that I'm guessing they won't be replaced. That's just where I feel like it's going to go, because I don't know if anyone's going to strive to be the next James Corden. And nothing against James Corden, just the medium changes.
But he's he's a perfect example. Like an attempt at a fresh face, a personality, and a style at trying to keep that late night TV train running. And he peaked so early, and really hasn't grown, and he's been on air for a long time. And he's not I don't find his stuff that great. Like, it hasn't really grown, and it hasn't sort of, the flavor is like just sort of vapid. Like, there's just no real style, and no offense to him, because I think he's funny as a person. But that's a perfect example of just stop the music. Just don't do this anymore.
Right.
Like, that's it. It's please stop. Just like another great medium that's decentralized. Yeah, move to a podcast. James Corden is much better served in terms of his skills and his personality and his everything he delivers on a podcast and on late night TV. That's it. Done. People want more risk. People want more edge. They want more story. Give it to them.
More authenticity.
Don't give me this TV dinner crap.
Yeah.
Nobody wants that more.
These 7-minute conversations that Jimmy Fallon will have with an actor before a commercial break. Like, it feels so, when you don't watch it for a while, like I listen to a ton of podcasts now and really don't watch much TV. And I listen to like Rogan and all these guys who have these long form conversations. Then you watch the Tonight Show or something, and you see this 6-minute kind of fake conversation with somebody plugging a movie, and then it goes into like a toothpaste ad. You're like, what is this? This is so weird. It's so weird.
Yeah, and that's I think I'll sort of bumper sticker all this with the concept of people, you need to treat people smarter. And that's what social media has revealed. One, because they will know when something is bullshit, and treat your audience intelligently. And one, and two, don't underestimate their palate and desire for long form content that is story driven and authentic and real and unprimed and preempted. And you know, it's, no one wants to see this 6-minute conversation that they've agreed on talking points, and it's going to be this question and this answer. It's like, I see this is fake. Like, this is not organic. People want organicness. They want authenticness. They don't. Nobody likes fake. A Subway sandwich with you tell me it's tuna and it's really like
The
not
bread
tuna,
bag.
whatever the hell it was. Yeah.
Totally.
You know.
Yeah.
Nobody wants.
Respect your audience. It's the big thing. Yeah.
Respect your audience. There you go. Even better bumper sticker. That's a bumper sticker.
Last thing, I know you said that you had a couple impressions that we might see in 2021, but do you have any plans for like your channels or things you want to accomplish now that you've kind of popped a little bit and are starting to put content out more regularly?
Yeah. So it's going to be more fleshed out, famous scenes from The Serranos. So you're going to see a lot more in terms of quantity, a lot of famous scenes. And the reason why it's, been taken so long is because there are so many. And there's also I've been sorting through all the comments and people and what the people want, what people have been asking for. So I've been logging that, and a lot more collaborations with other fellow comedians and impressionists. And it's funny, we all have a group DM on Instagram. So
cool.
Yeah, so expect some more collaborations and some more original writing in terms of the sketches, not only for Serranos but across the board with some new impressions. And it's been so far been a great year and will continue to be. And I think one update for the fans is I'm on Cameo right now, and I've come to realize that Cameo was great in the beginning, but I think it's a bit disingenuous in them empowering their creators. So for everyone who's gone through that and wants those specialized shout outs, it's probably sooner rather than later I'm going to be sort of going independent.
Okay.
Yeah, just because they just they skim so much from the top, and we all want to make a living with all of our the work that we put out there, and people wanting to have engage with projects, and I don't think it's right. So that's kind of a little bit of some juice in terms of some disruptive action on my end.
I've always wondered how Cameo stays afloat, really. Like, I have a friend who won't go into too much detail, who had a job at Cameo, like an accounts person. And he says like the most toxic work environment, not to shit on Cameo too much, but just like he'd always say, like, I can't believe this place is still running. Like, this business model is so weird.
Yeah, and I can't even, I could totally see that, because there's so many copycats of Cameo, and they are all seem super sketchy. So I think it was just a matter of them being the first one to the race, and having all the big names come on early and having that strong brand affinity. But that business model is not going to last. So yeah, I'll be going independent. So that's like a big update for 2021. But
That's a good move.
yeah, but Joe, you you are a very talented guy, and I enjoyed this very, very much, man. Seriously. So
I enjoyed this too, Mick.
I wish you all the best, and I hope we could do this again, and you eventually get on Rogan yourself.
That's the dream. That's the new daydream. Totally. But no, yeah. Nick, I really appreciate you making the time. This is a blast. Enjoyed talking to you.
No, totally, man. You're gonna be throwing your weight around quite a bit this podcast. I'm excited to watch it grow. Seriously. But this was great conversation, and look forward to doing it again.